off the eclipse path and in urban and rural environments. So it's about everything. And it's also about stories because, and so this is, in my opinion, this is gonna be the session that's gonna be the hardest to keep short. And it's the thing that we want to continue in discussions out in the lobby and at lunch and afterward, because an eclipse story is something that everyone who's been in the path of totality experiences. It is deeply personal, but it's also universal. When someone gives their eclipse story and you have already been in totality, it will feel familiar to you. And then you'll want to incorporate elements of their story into your story. And so this is about that fundamentally. Let me just make, is the camera pointed in the right?
The camera is currently pointed at you.
We're good,
Yes.
okay.
Also, there's a little bit of an echo online, so maybe we're a little loud,
Okay,
or somebody's unmuted that shouldn't be.
would be somebody's
Might be
unmuted.
me. Yeah, everybody,
Yeah, everyone.
because this is actually on the echo. That's good.
All right, let's see how. Our first speaker is from the Earth to Sky Interagency Partnership. This is Cris White.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for coming. We'll go ahead and get started. Do you want to? Where's the dance? I didn't listen to the lesson, but I can fill. Yeah. No. I see a laser.
It's the button that you can feel a little bit of a.
Yeah, that's what I'm pushing.
know
But
what-
it's not. This one, right? Yeah. It's not working. Do you mind to end just that?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, go back one if you would. Yeah, it finally worked. Yeah, it did, okay. I apologize. You weren't supposed to see all those other ones yet. Tips for engaging with your community. These are pretty obvious ones. It's kind of like when you want to make a friend, you know? You're open, you're genuine, you're yourself. Plan for all abilities, so diverse abilities. Make sure you're thinking of everyone in your community, regardless of what their need might be. Try to switch to saying yes and rather than yes but, because yes but kind of tends to, if someone's talking to you and they present something that may not quite be true, if you say yes but, you just told them that what they said is wrong and discounted everything they said. Which people get really hurt feelings about that. They want to feel like they know something. So if you use yes and, you still have the opportunity to correct a misconception, but you're not discounting their view, if that makes sense. And show your passion. Most of all, show your passion, because when you're passionate about something, people can't help but to form around you. Okay, we'll see if this works now. No. Can you advance one?
It's still not working.
No.
Try again.
Maybe I'm not pointing it at the right place.
Nope.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. You can see eclipse viewing is very, very popular. And I love this picture on the end because the two without the glasses are not looking at the sun. Only the one with the glasses. So this is my safety slide. Safety is priority. So if you do not have glasses on, do not look at the sun. It's for the annular, right? Which will be here. During totality on the total eclipse path on April 8th of next year, you can take them off. And the best way to know when that moment arrives, you'll stop seeing anything in your eclipse glasses. So you can take them off your head, view totality. The second you start to see Bailey's beads, which is that little bit of light coming through the valleys of the moon, put them back on. Otherwise you'll get some serious eye damage, which I don't think anybody's prepared for. Okay, next slide.
You should get it up.
Oh, okay, great. So I'm here to talk to you about place and being in place. We go to many different places in the world, right? to visit with our families, to enjoy, to be there, to experience it. Sometimes it may be to see a wild animal that you have never seen before. I can't even imagine being this photographer and having a wolf stare directly into my eyes. Seems intimidating. But sometimes we go to places for that reason. No. It's not me, I don't think. It's
Okay.
advancing, I think it's you.
No, try again.
Whoa. Sometimes we go to experience something we never have before, like a lovely rafting trip down the river. This is Cataract Canyon at high water. And as you can see, high water can sometimes send you quite the memory. Ingrained in your brain of holding onto the raft with all of your might. Sometimes you go to a beautiful place to see a gorgeous natural feature, like a hot thermal pool. And you can also smell these, right? This is Yellowstone National Park. They're very fragrant. So that'll be burning your brain. Sometimes you go to see your child become the very first time they've ever become a junior ranger. And you're so proud of them. So to bond with your family, to be with your family. So everybody just close your eyes for a second. And online, that goes for you as well. And think about a place that has particular meaning to you. Somewhere that you love to go and just be. Who are you with? What's the surroundings like? What sounds and smells come to you? Now take a second and share that with your neighbor. It's going to get really loud in here for a second. Sorry. Okay, let's come back. So I had the opportunity at an event here during AAS, AAS, American Astronomical Society's meeting to meet Jack Schmidt, who was an astronaut from Apollo 17. And I asked him, when he looked back at the Earth from the moon, like what was the thing that he felt? What thoughts went through his head? And he said, my first thought was, well, there's the Earth, that's exactly where it should be. And then he said, my second thought was, that's home. That's where my love is, that's where my family is. That's where everybody I know is right now, and I'm here. And home is a big, powerful thing, right? So what I'm trying to get at is when we think of those special places, we are drawn to these universal connections. No matter where you are on Earth, you can understand what home is to you, right? We all have a home. And we also get to engage in it and experience things as a family, as friends, however you like to travel. This is from Dead Horse Point State Park, where I used to work. And we are using pinhole projectors made out of PVC pipe and duct tape because we didn't know there was a partial eclipse until last minute. And it was pretty engaging for the people that were there, just kind of wandering around. We pulled them out, showed them how they could project. You can see the sun is at their back. They're not looking at the sun. So if you ever hear you're going to use a pinhole projector, make sure you keep the sun at the back of you. And it's really important to have opportunities for people to engage in the eclipse themselves. Something active, something that puts them in place with their own experience. I thought I had one more slide, I'm missing it, so I'll just tell the story. I think I cut it because I was like, I don't have time. I live in Moab, Utah, and in Moab, Utah, we have red spotted toads. And we have all these ephemeral pools where the water catches when it rains. And in those pools, we get to watch those toads go from eggs floating on the surface to tadpoles, and then on to toads, little baby toads. And because of that transition, I think about the eclipse, and I think that's kind of the same thing that happens with the eclipse, right? Is a metamorphosis from sun, moon, to moon over sun, and then to partials, and then to off. So there are ways, wherever you are, whatever place you work at, whatever site you're going to be at for the eclipse, there are always ways to connect to what's happening up there in the sky. And so it's finding those universal stories for yourself. So I highly encourage you to go out to your site, sit somewhere, and just watch the cycles of light and dark. Listen to what the animals do in those cycles. And also watch what people do around your site, because that's going to help you identify those universal connections before people come. And then you have a way to connect to the resources at your site, which gives them a chance to meaningfully engage in the eclipse itself. And you can see there's our QR code. I'm Cris White. I work with the Earth to Sky Interagency Partnership, which is a partnership between U.S. Fish and Wildlife, NASA, the National Park Service, and hopefully a few other federal agencies coming up soon. And there's my information. Feel free to email me for more information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cris. Next up, we have Trish Erzfeld, who is Perry County, Missouri Tourism. When I first saw Trish talk at the AAS Eclipse meeting in 2019 in St. Louis, she was 2 years post the 2017 experience where they were in the path of totality. And Perry County is one of the places where the two paths cross for 2024. One of the things that, one of the deep lessons that I've taken away from Kate Russo's work, she's again behind me, is that individual people, it needs to be a kind of, rather than relying on people supposedly above you, every person who is engaged and passionate about the eclipse in their community should do something, should organize, should bring people along. And that is the path to success. And so Trish has been a one-woman path to success, although I know she has a team around her that she needs to acknowledge and stuff, but one-woman path to success. And she's going to tell you some about this experience in the specifically rural community of Perry County, Missouri. Trish.
All right, thank you. Okay, I gotta find the little knob here. Yeah, really. Okay, so in 17, the two most popular questions that people have always been asking me is, what was easy and what was hard about planning for our community? Putting on the party was definitely the easiest. So we all have festivals, we have county fairs, we have block parties. We just took the footprint of one of our existing annual festivals, one that everyone was familiar with, and we changed its name to Solar Fest. We brought in a lot of the same components, such as a carnival, a parade, food trucks, drink stands, and live music. But the difference is we took our craft fair and we turned it into a science fair. And this gave our local industries and businesses a platform to get involved and to show us what was the cool science behind what they done and what they made. What was difficult was planning, was making everyone realize that whether you were interested in the eclipse or not, that it was going to affect your day and most likely your entire weekend. Even if you didn't participate in any of our events, there was going to be families that were going to be dealing with school schedules, waits at their favorite restaurants, local meetings and clients canceling, that they just couldn't ignore it. And even though we were dealing with those people who didn't think that the eclipse was going to affect them, we were seriously searching for ways and events that we could find those who, to the extreme opposite, that this event was going to affect their lives. We wanted to inspire the next astronaut. We wanted to inspire the next science teacher. And we even wanted to inspire the next amateur astronomer, because we wanted to create another community leader, or 5 or 10, those people who gather people in your community and show them your community in a special way. And what better way to do that than through the stars? So in designing experiences for your community, think broadly, because not everyone considers themselves in a scientific way, and therefore it's hard for them to relate to the event. An example could be if you are an appointment-based business, such as a doctor or a dentist, you're a hairstylist, you run a spa, own an insurance agency, maybe you're a financial advisor, a mechanic, or even a dog groomer. All of these people, along with many others, work on a client scheduled base of appointments. What do you think is going to happen to them on Monday of Eclipse? Yeah. So how can we help them realize and make them aware of these possibilities? Where your nursing homes and independent care facilities provide Eclipse glasses and an opportunity to their elderly residents. Super easy, but are they even aware? Will your pharmacies promote to their customers to get their monthly medication either before or after the Eclipse weekend? Big deal, really, either way. Just another way that we can provide a suggestion to help simplify an errand that they're going to do, whether it's getting your prescription or even your grocery shopping. How can you alleviate that and avoid the influx of the traffic on a not so ordinary Monday? And then there's those industries and businesses that don't have the opportunity to even think about being off that day. Will they provide or make available solar glasses and give their employees an opportunity to go outside and witness totality? Maybe this is as simple as scheduling a special break or providing a special lunch hour. And if you're a gas station or a convenience store in your community, make sure that they have available certified Eclipse glasses for unprepared travelers. You're also going to want to ask them if they would mind providing, if you give them flyers and brochures to post for their visitors coming in, about your public viewing areas or your special event locations. These are your people in your community on your front line that are meeting your out-of-town visitors. So help them help you. And of course, we want to make it this extremely rare opportunity to educate and inspire those through our schools, our libraries, and our organizations. Help partner them with speakers and demonstrations. So if you know you have a high altitude balloon flights, or you have solar viewing opportunities, and you know these individuals or these teams are coming into your area, work to partner them with your community. It is a win-win for both. Create a library telescope program and check out a telescope just like you would a book from your local library. Let someone continue discovering the night sky even after the eclipse is over. And speakers can range from the obvious of what an eclipse is, from your local university professor or local weather professional, to how the birds and the insects will react from your local conservation department. We would all love to have them come to our communities and talk to us about this stuff, but the reality is you have some really good and you have some excellent speakers that are a lot closer than you may think. And then finally, memories last a lifetime. So try to provide something lasting for your community. It doesn't have to be a planetarium, although that would be super cool for us all to get a planetarium. But It could be a sundial for your community. It could be a model of the solar system for your local library. An outdoor mural, a piece of art. We want somebody to come through on an ordinary Monday after the eclipse and then be able to talk about what they experienced or to bring up the conversation. So these are some really good ways to keep the eclipse alive in your community, even after it's over with. So I look forward. I think my contact slide was probably one of them that I cut because I was like everybody else is like, this is so much in so little time. So I look forward to the breakout session. Thank you.
Thanks, Trish. One of the things she kind of touched on is our action item here now, less than 10 for 2024. Basically, one of our fundamental jobs is to create in our community Eclipse ambassadors. So we started in Rochester to do this by festival outreach, and as my one of my partners in crime, Dan Schneiderman at the Rochester Museum and Science Center, is fond of saying everyone under the sun needs to be aware of this. So at these outreach events, I typically ask, okay, so what do you do? Oh, you're in medicine. Okay, great. Here's what you need to do over the next 10 months to inform the folks at your hospital. What do you do? Oh, you're in construction. Okay, great. Start talking about the okay, great, here's what you need to do. One action item has been proven key, so we did that to you. Okay, coming up right next, in the dark here. Oh, Gena McPherson. Okay, we're gonna be thinking even more storytelling on a deeply rural basis and how you could have success in the Eclipse.
So yes, my name is Gena McPherson, and I am a married foster mom of 5, and I help run our homestead and a microgreens business. But before all that, I was the chamber director for our small town of 1,300 in rural Nebraska, and our small town is Ravenna, Nebraska. So let me make sure. Whoop, sorry, no, you're right. Got the sample here. Okay, there we go. So. This is, you know, from the day of the eclipse. So not all of our children are in that photo, but 2 of them are. So it all started in 2014 when my husband's uncle, he called and asked if he could stay at our house on August 21st, 2017. And once we said, of course, but then asked him why, that's when he explained that something big was coming. And after some research, I started to slowly realize how big of a deal this really was and how big of an opportunity this could be for our town. That's when we started educating the town about what a total solar eclipse is and why it was such a big opportunity. We created a website, which my husband was able to create for us. This is a little promo that we did. I'll just show you a little look of it, just so you can see a moment over here. Just created excitement for people. There's Ravenna. Again, I'm not going through the. We also, some of our, you will recognize our lovely Kate here. We attempted to what we call the Eclipse Marshmallow Challenge. You know, when challenges were all the rage, you know, trying to come up with something to do on social media that would grab attention, but then also get other people to do it and then have it snowball. That was amongst a lot of the different social media campaigns that we did.
What was it? It was the challenge.
So, yeah, and I have a link to the video at the end, but basically, if you were to throw the marshmallow, well, first you have to put on the glasses and throw the marshmallow at the person, but you have to say, the eclipse is coming. And then you throw it and say, don't miss it. And then generally people don't catch it in their mouth, but you give it a shot. That's about the only thing we can think of to throw that wouldn't hurt somebody because it's going to put them in the face. Another thing that we did that was try to do a creative thing was to actually paint a mural on the side of a semi-trailer to put at basically what would be the entrance of our town, but you have to go over an overpass to actually get into our town. So our town is a drive-by town. And so this was something that we wanted to do that could easily be moved around, drew attention to the eclipse, but also would be everlasting after the eclipse, a really neat thing for our town to have. Obviously, all the informational brochures that we could do and get out and put in the coffee shops, anywhere that we could think of to get people talking. And then we also, kind of like what Trish was saying, you utilized our existing events as a platform for, getting everybody excited for what was coming. So our normal annual event of Anavar, Ravenna spelled backwards, was something that we tried to make it all about the eclipse, and incorporate a planetarium experience, and different things that were, all themed with the eclipse. And then, of course, to get ready for everybody, we had a lot of speakers to get everybody excited. And it wasn't until Kate came that people got extremely excited. She was extremely well at speaking to the town, but then obviously was amazing at guiding us through everything Eclipse. And she also landed our town some of the biggest promotional opportunities that we had ever, imagined. We got an interview on BBC Radio, an article in the LA Times, and a documentary on Vice News. And that had almost 2 million views. That was just phenomenal for our town.
Before it was?
Yes, yep. All right, and then, so additional preparation then basically, getting everybody excited was on the roll then at that point. So then we, with Kate's guidance, transitioned from informing to preparing by meeting and working with like the Department of Roads, so we could track people coming into our town, the local county and state police to prepare for traffic jams and accidents, emergency personnel to also prepare for accidents, medical emergencies and people overheating because it was going to be likely be hot that day. The public power company to control the town lights, make sure that they wouldn't automatically turn on during the eclipse to ruin everybody's experience. The school to work with them to include Eclipse educational programming, eye safety instruction, as well as work with them on hosting other surrounding schools on our football field and for viewing, and host a NASA astronaut to come and speak to the community and our kids. And then working with local businesses so they can plan ahead and capitalize on the influx of people. And of course, the mayor and our city to plan viewing locations, parking, and absolutely everything else. And then came the planning of our 5-day festival that we had during the eclipse to offer for obviously all our local people, but then everybody that was visiting during that time. So we had everything from music festivals to a fair, a golf tournament, a fun run, a cruise night, and we were able to do a parade, had community members get so excited that they handed out free ice cream to everybody. Just kind of went above and beyond, and then also did get an astronaut to come and present to the community and inspire the kids, which was amazing as well. And all of the preparation paid off as our town of 1,300 welcomed 30,000 visitors from all over the world. Not only were we able to safely handle this many people for the big event, but we also received a huge boost in our businesses and economy in general. Lastly, oops. Oh, clicking the wrong one. There we go. Lastly, the hype of the eclipse excited so many people in our town that we had completed more projects than ever seen before in our community in preparation for the event that ended up being huge assets for our town and continue to be to this day. The biggest ones being the development of our small county lake, just 1 mile away from our town. This lake had not been developed by any means, and people could go camp there with a tent, but that was basically it. By working with the county commissioners, we were able to develop campsites, get electricity out there, and actually for the eclipse ended up hosting over 100 campers out at our lake, which was amazing for a small town. And that just one weekend of campers out there resulted in $14,000 of income for our small town. And for the chamber itself, selling t-shirts, oh, whoops, yes, sorry, I'm ahead of myself here. So just the impact for our town, like just for the chamber, we have come up with ways, how are we gonna make the money and pay for all this and hopefully make some money that are gonna help with future projects. Just with our t-shirt sales for our small town, we made 11,000, the glasses, we made 10,000. Viewing location tickets, 6,000, we were able to get $8,000 in sponsorships. And then a beautiful quilt made by one of our locals, had sold $2,000 worth of raffle tickets. And those are my children. I highly suggest using any of family members for your marketing materials, if at all possible. It comes in handy. And we encouraged local businesses to create and sell souvenirs, extend their business hours, have specials, create festive atmospheres in their business, and they did just that. We had businesses selling t-shirts, koozies, necklaces, nightlights, and not to mention, we kept in constant communication with our grocery stores, restaurants to make sure they were planning ahead for the increasing inventory or influx of people. Lastly, our golf course was actually able to capitalize on being a viewing location that was a wide open, beautiful place, but also sold food and alcohol and souvenirs. So in summary, it's definitely possible for a small town to do big things with little resources and to prepare for a total solar eclipse. And I truly appreciate your time, and I'm excited to answer any questions that I can. I apologize, I did not put contact information on here, but I can update that before it gets shared with everyone. But this last slide does link to a lot of the different things that are our promotional stuff that we have online. If anybody wants to see it, we had John Davis do an endorsement for us. He's the creator of Jimmy Neutron. So it was kind of fun that he did a little, and that would be the Ravenna song. We had a local's husband created a song just for our town, and actually then that became the song that our school would sing like every morning when the kids got to school and everything. So that's kind of our town anthem. But yeah, just a lot of neat things for ideas if you need some. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And one of the points that Gena said was that it deserves a kind of underlining. This experience can launch you into a future, right? So start, as you're planning, think about how you're going to be able to leverage that. And that was exciting. Okay, next up, please welcome Harvey Henson from Southern Illinois University. They, like Trish and Perry County, Missouri, were in the path in totality in 2017 and will be again in 2024. The crossroads of America. Crossroads of the eclipse.
Thank you. So my name is Harvey Henson. I'm at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. So happy to be with you here. Last minute substitution. We'll talk about that in a moment. I'm the STEM Education Research Center Director. So I'm part of the Eclipse planning team. I serve with Bob Baer, who was supposed to be here. You all probably know Bob Baer. Many of you serve with him on the task force and other committees. Big shoes to fill. So I'll give it my best. That's my first confession. This is our website, eclipse.siu.edu. And you can see we have 304 days left. Hard to believe, right? As Deb said, we were obviously in the path in 2017. And we started preparing in the Eclipse Task Force there about 2 years before that event. So now we're keeping track. We have almost 8 years for this event. And sometimes I still feel like we're woefully unprepared, right? As Jay and others have pointed out, there's just so many things that are unpredictable. And yeah, it really takes a team, as others have pointed out. So I'm proud of the team that I get to serve with. And I'll try to give you a taste of what we experienced in 2017 in Carbondale, and maybe talk a little bit about what we're doing to prepare for 2024. And certainly in the breakout session, we can get into more details. So yeah, if we could bring up the slide deck. So we did plan for an interesting stadium event in Carbondale. We had about 30,000 people that came to campus. This is a campus at that time of about 16,000 students. So yeah, our campus more than doubled on that Monday. But it was more than that. As some pointed out, it was a whole weekend event, and there were many communities that were preparing all week, not just Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for the Monday. Yeah, next slide.
I do not have to remember.
I'm gonna beg off it. For your capable assistance. So I think everyone's familiar with the idea behind the Eclipse, but I put this slide because this is part of the slide deck that we use. And as others have said, we've trained our ambassadors to go out. And I serve as co-chair of the Education Outreach Committee, part of our Eclipse planning team. And one of our roles is to serve education community in our region and surrounding states as well. But we also train our guest speaker pool. We're doubling down this time around because we got bombarded, as many of you have pointed out. And there are always those last minute venues that you want to take advantage of, right? Because of the obviously safety, education, and to do be a good community partner. Next slide. We can skip this one as well, unless you haven't seen this. This is a very spectacular model that was put together. So as Deb mentioned, we are at this crossroads of the 2017 event and the April 2024 event. So 6 years to prepare, right? Well, that's a blessing and a bit of a challenge because in 6 years, we have a totally new group of individuals serving on our Eclipse planning team. And so do the surrounding communities that we serve in and we try to coordinate with. New elected officials, first responders, and again, you feel like you're just getting started in some cases because you bring no idea what a total eclipse is about and what's about to happen to their communities. So it is a real challenge. Yeah, so, and we can skip to the next one. I want to get to a bit of a taste of what happened. Yeah, go ahead.
We don't have any sound online.
This is one of the launches. We did have some clouds. In fact, there was one annoying cloud for about 30 seconds that stood over the stadium. Kind of made us a little panicky. But that was a condensation effect. And we have one more video.
Share the sound first. Is the sound not sharing?
No, you'll have to unshare. And then, I'm sorry, I didn't think.
So there's one fellow, there's one fellow that had never experienced a total eclipse. That's several people, but this one individual who makes a great exclamation was the dean of our College of Science.
Share screen.
Watch for that.
Just click on the main share screen button.
Got the 2 boxes in the bottom one.
Oh, yeah. Can I not just set that as a?
Yeah, I have that same question. I didn't do that.
All right, here we go. I'll remember the next time then. That?
Yeah. So is that familiar? I'm sure many others had that same experience. So second confession, this was my first total solar eclipse. I remember first grader who had a lot more hair than this guy here. In rural southern Indiana on the farm, experiencing a partial eclipse for that 1970, I think it was March 7th, total solar eclipse that just passed through southern Florida. But that was my first partial solar eclipse. And I remember, and I don't recommend this or endorse this, but my father was a welder, and so he got the welding mask out, and that was our experience of seeing partial eclipse. Now we have better technology today, right? We know that. So I encourage you to use those solar viewers. Second confession, I would say maybe I qualify as an eclipse chaser now. That's a 2017 event under our belt.
If it comes to you, you're not a chaser.
So I did go to Australia. I raised my hand for that one. And I'm already making plans for other Australian visits, and then the 2045 event, yeah, 21 years from now. It's going to be a little south of Carbondale. So I'm going to that. That might be my last event because I'm going up there at that point. So, that's all the confessions I have for right now. I'd be glad to go and answer some of your questions if I can, standing for Bob and our team at Southern. So thank you.
Oh, it's here. If you're doing find my phone, it's here. Stop doing it.
Stop doing it.
Okay, I think our next participant is remote, yeah? Julia Bradshaw
Oh, okay.
from Oregon State.
But I got her slide. But I have Julia's slide. Have we got her on that?
Hi, can I share my slides?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Woo-hoo. Excellent.
Hi, everybody. You can all hear me, great. So my focus is to talk about sort of like arts events that took place during the 2017 eclipse, hopefully to give you some ideas of what you can do in your communities. There was a lot happening at Oregon State University, very similar to what we've just heard, but I'm going to focus on the arts and community. I'm really representing 3 people here because this is a collaboration, and I highly recommend you find people who you want to collaborate with as we go through. And Tom's on the call and he will answer any questions at the Q&A today. So how we approach the arts, we came together really through our love of photography. I teach photography at Oregon State University. So we started off with photography workshops. I'm then going to talk about the community outreach from the Heart of the Valley Astronomy Club. This is an all-volunteer club that did most of the outreach, 50 miles north and south of our area, and the arts activities that took place during the eclipse weekend. So we started off in April doing these photography workshops, teaching people how to make a solar filter, and then teaching them about the eclipse. And that was great because it meant that 5-6 months ahead of time, we were already doing our outreach and already starting talking and preparing people for the eclipse. Information on how to make a solar filter is available on the internet. The companies that sell the solar filter material, there's a couple of them, have information, and it's pretty easy to do. You can make them out of cardboard, but you do have to buy this special solar filter material, which is quite pricey, but we got a big roll of it. And I reckon we ran 9 workshops of 20 to 30 people for about $400, $300 to $400. Of course, our labor was free. As I'm at a university, I was able to sort of like pre-prepare materials using a laser cutter in varying filter sizes, which was fun. And after we'd made the filters, we showed people how to do that. I had students and also members of the astronomy club, Heart of the Valley Astronomy Club, helping people make these filters. And while they were drying, the glue was drying, Tom Carrico gave a presentation on what to expect during the eclipse and also how to photograph the eclipse. And then, of course, we went outside and practiced. And that's the great thing about this. You can actually practice ahead of time. You don't have to wait for the solar eclipse, so you can practice. And we also worked with whatever people turned up with, whether it was their phone or binoculars or whatever. And we use this as an opportunity, of course, for education. handing out the glasses, and really safety was a massive part of our project. So the lessons we learned, this is a great early way to get the word out about the eclipse, and people love making things. So it was a fun, engaging experience. It began to be a partnership between the sciences, the community, and the art department, which was lovely. We could have run more workshops, and Dr. Erickson mentioned about thinking about what happens after. We just had a pop-up post-eclipse exhibition just because we were having so much fun, and people loved it. And so we posted up people's pictures in a corridor in the art department, and young people and old people, everybody in between, took part and shared their experiences. The Heart of the Valley Astronomy Club was the major community outreach in our area, and it went northwards 50 miles, and I would say quite a broad area they covered. They would set up their solar telescopes at libraries, and you can see here in the middle one of our homemade solar filters on this telescope. And they also started really early on, and remember this is an all-volunteer organized group, astronomy club. They started 8 months before, talking to people in the governor's office, Travel Oregon, Forest Service, the sheriff, public broadcasting, local libraries and the like. They met with local business to try and help them understand the impact. And at OSU and at with the Heart of the Valley Astronomy Club, we have materials available in Spanish and English, and I think that's been mentioned before. The club benefited. More people became interested in their star parties, more social media traffic, more community outreach, community interest. And they actually gave over 60 presentations and probably reached about 3,000 people, again, all volunteers, teaching people what to expect during the eclipse. Their lessons learned, and Tom's here for the Q&A, he feels that they should have been standing meetings, so every month, maybe even weekly, so that the community could drop in and learn about what to expect. And now we could have weekly Zoom chats. That wasn't something that we would have considered back then. They would have liked to increase their social media presence, have more safe viewing practice sessions. Tom used to just send an email around saying, "I'm in the park, come join me." And he could have, he felt they could have worked closer with organizations like Travel Oregon. During the eclipse weekend, the university had a lot of science organized, and I organized lots of arts activities. Because this was summer, we could use the gallery in the university because there was no programming. And I curated an exhibition that I called Totality to make by artists who make artwork about our cosmos. And it was important to me because Corvallis is a very educated town, if you can say. People knew they were going to come to Oregon State for the science. They didn't really expect to come for the arts, but I really wanted to show how the arts and science work together, and that artists are there and they interrogate really the culture of science. And so I have to say myself, it was a smartly curated exhibition. And at the weekend, we did a ton of arts events, simple things like making cyanotypes, anything that we could relate to the sun. We had poetry writing, which was led by Crowley Driscoll, and he brought sort of like the indigenous perspective of storytelling to the events. And another post-event thing that they did was to publish a booklet of the poetry that was written at the event. So it's, again, this is something that continued after the eclipse event. We did cosmic button making using old Sky and Telescope magazines. And we had storytelling. So a local children's author came along, and the children made up a story about an ant that went into space. We had music events, electronic light shows and music experiences, again, eclipse related. And we had an artist who created a mural and was there present during the entire weekend, talking to visitors as he was painting. And we had an art historical lecture by Dr. Liana Weitzman. And so many of you will probably have at the university a professor who will be able to do a similar kind of talk. And she gave a talk about eclipses in art, historically and more contemporarily. So our lessons learned. The arts at OSU, at my university, were involved way too late. I think we weren't even an afterthought. We weren't even considered. It was just happenstance that I'm interested in photography, felt I needed to do something, and then realized that I could do quite a lot because there was a vacuum and it was the summer. So I recommend that you work with artists, secure an art space, hire a curator, allocate a budget for the arts. I really wanted to show the relationship between arts and science, but really from an intellectual side. And that was great for our particular audience. So people came to OSU for the science and the eclipse, but it's also a family occasion. They bring their entire families along. And so our arts activities played a large part in making the arts and the eclipse very family friendly. And I encourage working with collaborators from varying groups. So groups that you maybe not even thinking would want to be involved, find your collaborators. It's a lot of fun. And we're doing it again, the annular eclipse. We're very fortunate in October the 14th, only 60% chance of cloud on that day. And Dr. Randall Milstein, who may be here for the Q&A if he can, obviously we did a ton of science at OSU, which has been mentioned before. So thank you very much. And I'll stop sharing now. And here's my contact details. And if Tom wants to share his, he'll put it in the chat. And he'll be here for the Q&A.
Thank you so much. Questions again from Kate Russo.
I'll try and keep mine brief because I think we're all time again. Just to state the obvious, there's the sun goddess in the room. I don't know if you've actually noticed. There's Loretta with her beautiful sun goddess costume. So make sure you talk to her and listen to what ideas that she's been doing because it's pretty cool. So I'm going to be focusing on what you can do if you're outside of the path of totality. And of course, it is all about the total solar eclipse. We want to encourage everybody to get into the path. And I'm sure you have all seen this. This is what I refer to as Michael's map of nope. And it really is quite serious because in Eclipse Chaser will tell you, you just do not go to any other place. And it is all about in the path of totality. People can't travel, not everyone can travel. Not everyone has the luxury of having the time off. And you can't move towns. You can't blame these communities for being outside of the path, and they will be impacted. So the eclipse is going to happen, and we all want to be in the path, but a lot of these places outside of the path will be impacted. So they do need to do planning as well. And more and more, I've been contacted by businesses or people outside of the path saying, hey, I'd like to be involved. What can I do? So I think that's really encouraging. That's why I thought I'd focus it on here. So 3 examples I'm going to give. The first is the work that I did with the Shire of Ashburton, and that's the Shire next to the Shire of Exmouth in Australia. And I did this with Carol Redford, who's on the left, and she's the founder and chair of Astrotourism WA. She's really passionate about the night sky. I'm really passionate about eclipses. So we joined forces and we proposed the eclipse and dark sky strategy for the Shire of Ashburton. So we were involved in working with them for quite a few months. And it was a real great opportunity to do something in partnership with someone else. So I'll do that first, and then I'll talk about Carol's Eclipse Discovery Tour. And so this is for people who may be doing outreach activities outside of the path of totality. So she's got some outcomes for that. And the third thing I will share is the lovely Edwina in the middle, and she runs a cattle station, which is also an outback stay. outside of the path of totality, and will share some things that she had and some learnings that you can benefit from. So the first is about the Shire of Ashburton. It really is massive. And the size of Kentucky, Kentucky has 4.5 million people, but Shire of Ashburton is 13,000. It really is quite a special place. Tourism isn't really that well there, but there are some amazing, beautiful things. And so when we first started working with the Shire of Ashburton, I remember having a Zoom session. So we set up a steering committee that I co-chaired with Carol, and we were working with them about how to develop a strategy. We put a lot of time into this. But there was one particular Zoom session I remember. So it was back in 21, maybe. And the CEO of the Shire, he was on Zoom, and he was asking lots of questions. And then he kind of leans into the Zoom screen and says, right, here's what I really want to know. How do we eclipse Exmouth? So there's always that competition, right? There's always competition between neighbours. And so as best you can do on Zoom, I kind of leaned forward and looked him in the eye as best as I could. And I said, you don't. You can't compete, and you shouldn't be, trying to take people away from the path to have them stay with you. The whole idea is that you support the path of totality. You're there as a support, and there's a lot of things that you can do, and you can have a lot more freedom and flexibility, not tied down with a lot of those other things that are that may get in the way. So that's what we did, and we developed an eclipse strategy for the Shire of Ashburton. I'm not going to talk to any of these because I've already presented this as a poster last time, and you can download it from the AAS website. But what I was able to say to him, and he really loved this, I said, because they are in the path of totality for 2038, they are right smack in the middle of it. So I was able to say to the CEO, I said, right, you are going to be Exmouth in 2038. And not only that, because you've already started planning, you are 15 years ahead. I've never heard of a community planning so far in advance. They already got their eclipse and dark sky strategy. And I said, that's how you eclipse Exmouth. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. Watch that space, because there's going to be a lot happening. And of course, Ashburton is going to get a whole lot of, anytime I do presentations, they're going to be, the word is out there. So they get a lot of promotion for that. So this is Carol's project, and it's the Eclipse Discovery Tour. And for many years, she's been working at grassroots level, promoting small communities to take part and engage with the night sky. And there really is an underdeveloped tourism need for this. People are looking, lots of Australians can, people look to know about the dark sky. And for the eclipse, she was able to get a project going. She did 27 events across 4 regions. She had 22 financial sponsors. There was a budget of about $110,000, delivered by 55 stargazing volunteers and space science communicators. The events reached 3,000 people. 1,500 were non-local. So they actually had a big impact on these really small remote towns. And you can see the whole reach. She got people attending all these events. And the presentations were focused on 3 things. The first is about eclipse education and awareness to build buzz. The second was about the Western Australia as an astrotourism development project. And the third was that they had people from the science community across WA delivering information about the science projects that were happening. So it really was quite impactful. And so she's saying that, what makes it really successful is already having those established relationships with people on the ground. If you're applying for extra funding, make sure it covers workload support, because it was a huge undertaking and she needed to bring extra people in. And also for marketing, because there was no budget for marketing, and a lot of people actually didn't know that this project was happening. And she suggested a 2-year lead-in time, because if you start developing these programs, they can be linked in with the tours, international tours, and then that's another marketable project. So, a night sky activity for the Southern Hemisphere It's really popular. And she's also saying that they found that they needed to pitch the science at a very basic level. And like we were saying before, never assume that people know the basics, and that they needed a PA system for the larger groups. They were expecting so many people to come to these. Aboriginal astronomy, there was certainly a lot of interest in this. And this is a place where they're going and doing more projects in the future. And she was really passionate about putting together bags so people can actually take away things like eclipse glasses, solar planispheres, Aboriginal planispheres, which explain the night sky from an Aboriginal perspective. A few other things that she wanted to put in, but she couldn't really get that going off the ground. But ambitious, and she's very happy to talk to anyone about that. So you'll find her at astrotourismwa.com. The third is Bellara Station. So this is the Outback Cattle Station I was telling you about. The path of totality, obviously between those two lines, Bellara Station is outside of that. Now, of course, they didn't want to have a viewing site for the total solar eclipse because it's outside of the path. So they very much played a support role, and it was really quite popular. And as part of the organised planning, they took part in the driver reviver stop. Are you familiar with what that is? No. So in Australia, like in the US, we have lots of vast distances. So on peak travel times, if you're driving all across Australia, they have driver reviver stops. So you drive a few hours, you stop, you get a free cup of coffee and a Kit Kat. And then you can go on your merry way. And that reduces the risk of people driving tired. So they set up 5 of these along the path that people were driving from Perth. So they were the 5th one. And then they also did the staging for the emergency services staff. There were, I think, 8 fire units there. So they were in position so if there's any incidents on the road. So those 2 were other ways in which they were able to bring in a bit of income for that, as well as doing the 4-night minimum camping. And they arranged exclusive evening entertainment. They had bands, and they had Carol's final project the night before the eclipse was at Bellara. And Bob, if you're listening, and your team, like you were there, and so if you want to hear about what Bellara was like, yeah, absolutely. And so she put together some really good facts and figures for you, because it's just helpful knowing how many people and what the pattern was. She did have 4-night minimum, but she said some people stayed longer. Some people left, even though they might have had a night to go, but they left. What she found was interesting. She didn't expect an older demographic. So usually they have families camping, and there's, one site will have multiple people on. She said this time it was like one site could have 1 person on or a couple. So the sites were the same, but the numbers of people were lower. She noticed that people didn't spend much in the cafe and on merchandise, and it could have been because of the high cost of other things, but also because of the messaging was that supplies are going to be low, so you have to bring all your food and water and things with you. So that, remember, I was talking a bit about the risk messaging. It really did scare a lot of people off. So people had their resources, and they weren't spending in town, they weren't spending at these places. She found it very difficult to know how much to charge. She was aware of what was happening in the town of Exmouth with all the elevated prices and the 5-night minimums that were happening. And she wanted to make sure it was fair and reasonable. And just trying to figure that out was difficult. And she said she did manage to get that right. And it was really important to lock it in early, because people just want to be able to book their things. And locking it in early meant that other plans that were happening were able to know what they were doing, so they were able to take advantage of other things. So really good lessons there, I think. And the not to do, don't go too large. I think they wanted to actually have a massive big festival for people. And they started to go down the route of the, the licensing and everything. And it just seemed too much. It was very difficult to get decisions made in a short period of time. So they decided not to worry about that. They go with what they needed. And they are very glad that they kept it small. And by small, we mean like 500, quite large. But they had the facilities, they had the capacity to do that. And don't arrange competing events. So people actually went during the day, they explored the region, they came back at night and enjoyed the entertainment, the night sky gazing, and it seemed to work really well. So that's really good guidance for people who have property outside of the park in totality. So any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And if you want the contact details for those people, I'm happy to pass them on to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Yes, we are running a little bit late. Rick, do you have some details to talk about for the component of the breakouts?
I'm making it up as I go along. Classroom 2, which is down the hall, is the other room we have available. And so I'm figuring there's plenty of room there for, half or more of you. So I think we'll just breakout 1 will be in here and breakout 2 will be in there. So I don't even remember which one's which.
One is data.
One is data. So if you want to follow up, have some more discussion with the speakers from the first plenary, stay here. If you want to have some discussion with the speakers from the second plenary, go down there. Meanwhile, lunch is served.
If you're presenting after lunch and you haven't yet brought me your slides, go now.
Yeah, we will be zooming from both rooms.
Okay.
At least that's the plan.
Thank you, everybody. Eat well, eat fast, and we're reconvening here at, is it 12:30? 12:30. 36 minutes.